Today, the morning, I am going to explain about Buddhism. Then afternoon, uh, usually my what you call message or my sort of view, basically without touching religion, simply use or simply through our common sense and common experience, through that way uh, develop the inner values. Through that way, human life become more meaningful. That means more happier, in spite some difficulties, with inner strength. We can maintain peace of mind. Through that way, whole day you will be much more healthier. So now this morning about Buddhism. Before the explanation about Buddha Dharma or Buddhism, uh, I want to uh, I want to tell you some sort of basic thing, or I don't know. Now that is, now we are in 21st century. As far as material development is concerned, highly developed, and facility, generally speaking, most part of the world, material facility is good and still growing. And like here, Europeans, and here American and Canada, these countries, materially highly developed. Then, among people, so materially, everything there, but as an individual, unhappy person, there, we notice that. For example, among richer, sort of what's it, among wealthier people, there's sometimes too much stress, too much anxiety, and worry. So that clearly shows the money alone or material value alone may not bring deeper satisfaction or deeper happiness. Now here, we have this physical and mental. So the pains and pleasure, these two things are real or concern. So both, there are two levels or two categories. One mainly related with our physical. That is mainly, I think, sensorial level. Pains, pleasure, sensorial level. Another, mental level. It is obvious in our daily life. Sometimes physical level, very comfortable, but mentally unhappy, some pains. And sometimes mentally happy, but physically some problem, some pains. It is obvious now there are two categories. Then between these two, the mental thing is more superior. The reason, if mental state is calm, happy, then physical difficulties, physical pains can subdue. Other hand, if mentally, like depression, too much sort of trouble, then the physical comfort cannot subdue that. So that means mental level experience, pains and pleasure are more superior. Now, physical pains and difficulties can solve through material means. Right? For example, physical ill, through medicine, through medication, we can cure. Then problem in the mental level, 저는 just 가서 the psychotherapists are just do. 전쟁 mention 지치거든데 이제 또 가오도.
So, although even in medication, sometimes we do use therapeutic methods like pharmaceutical methods and so on to cure mental illnesses, but their effects are limited.
Just yesterday, we had some sort of discussion with scientists, including the psychiatrist. So according to their sort of finding, sometimes it's difficult to handle. So some questions they asked me, they put on me. My side also difficult to answer. Firstly, I have no such experience. So there also I mentioned, like our physical, if basic sort of immune system is strong, good, then virus or these things may not disturb much. If your basic sort of physical sort of strength weak, then even small virus or these sort of troublemaker then really create a lot of problem. So similarly, mental health also, if your basic mental attitude is healthy, strong, then some, let's say, the tragic sort of event usually is causing much sort of mental sort of anxiety, you can take more easily. Right? So if mental sort of attitude, mental state weak, then small event disturb very much and bring depression, some cases suicide. So that much I mentioned. So now important is build mental state more so healthy way. So that's our main the purpose of our talk. So since the mental sort of level experience much related with the mental attitude. So most cases is a mental pain namdo sesha.
In many cases, we come to recognize that the mental level suffering, to a large extent, our own creation.
And therefore, the remedy of that kind of suffering must find within the mind itself. There's no other way. So therefore, even in 21st century, various different religious traditions still have important role. Now, of course, in order to strengthen our mental state, I'm not saying we must accept religion. I'm not saying that. That the afternoon, I will
Touch.
I will touch. Oh. Yeah. So then, quite windy now here. Perhaps, I think this way may be better. 这样子国家都是困位，这都是困。Those people who have the head, please put on. Quite windy. So while we are talking about sort of the mental thing, we also take care about our body. Wait, 뭘 그래? 뭘 그러시다? 뭘 그러시다? 나 그런 야무로. 쌤 그나? 신나요? 신나요, 예. So then, regarding world religions, basically two categories. One, theistic religion. One, non-theistic religion. So two categories. Now I'm going to explain the differences through this way. All major religious traditions, they ask three questions or raise 3 points. Number one, what is I? What is self? Number one question or point. The second, whether there is beginning or not about self. Second question. Third question, whether there is end of that self or not. Now 3 questions. Now both theistic religion, non-theistic religion, they having some answer for these 3 questions. Now firstly, what is self? What is self? What is Re?
Re, what is?
Now here, I think mainly in India, also I think in Egyptian tradition, Egyptian sort of civilization, they begin to investigate what is I, what is self. So, the theistic and also within non-theistic, one category, one group, they sort of what say they believe self or I is something separate identity beside body and mind. So I or self really like owner of this body and mind. So for example, when the life end or at the death and the self, I, since it's independent because of the entity, so it can depart. So that you usually call Indian language Atma. I think usually people call soul. I think that is the self. So that permanent and oneness like that. So body change, but that soul not change. Then within the non-theistic Buddhism and Jainism, these two major traditions of India. Then another ancient Indian non-Buddhist tradition, there are also, you say, some as a non-theistic religion. So within the non-theistic, Buddhism alone, right? Buddhism alone believe no soul, no self. No self means no independent self. Self is simply designated on the combination of body and mind. That is self. So without investigation, there is self, and it works. But if we investigate what is the reality of self, we can't find. So conclusion is mere designation, right? Or on the combination of body and mind. So since self entirely depend on the body and mind, because designated, therefore we can easily describe body young self, young person. Body sick person, sick self, sick eye, right? Like that. So therefore, now there's differences. The entire different sort of religious tradition, only Buddhism have that view. No soul, no Atma, no independent self, but mere designated self. Right? So that's about the self. Now, second question, whether there is a beginning or not. All theistic religion there is beginning. God created. So at the time God creates, that's the beginning. And within that, some, although ultimately created by God, but many lives. Some Indian theistic tradition believe that. So they also have the concept of karma. Now, according to Christianity, Islam, Judaism, this seems just one life. This very life created by God. Then after this life, with some period, we just wait. Then final judgment happen. So this, as they believe, very powerful. As God creates this very life, so almost like our parent. So that brings the attitude we very close to God. Very sort of intimacy with God. So more that closeness feeling there, more tendency to follow, to respect, to follow God's sort of wish or God's sort of wish. So, you see, this philosophy is very, very useful. Now, when we describe about God, the infinite love. So therefore, the more close feeling to someone or to something which infinite love, automatically you yourself keen desire to follow, to copy or to khasota.
To embody that quality.
Love that.
To imitate that quality. Yeah.
To
imitate the quality of God.
If we very much admire someone, very well educated or something, or scientist or religious person, and if we have more admiration, more sort of closeness feeling, then there is tendency to follow that their example. Same. So God, nobody say God is so angry, so hateful. Nobody say that. God is the infinite love, full of love. So therefore, we created by such sort of creator, such God. It's very, very helpful, very powerful. And then also, you see, the way of practice is faith to God. The more faith means full trust, full sort of
devotion.
You totally relying on that. So that also, you see, help to reduce extreme self-centered sort of attitude, self-grasping feeling reduce because you totally submit to God and offer yourself to God. My Christian friend, many years ago, he shows interest about selflessness. Buddhist term,
Anatman.
Then I told him about anatma. This theory, selflessness theory, is Buddhist business, not your business. But then he mentioned, oh, he also, the Christianity also, you see, have some kind of sort of similar sort of attitude. You see, empty oneself. It's good. I think totally submit to God. There is no sort of something important self here. Self totally sort of submit to God. So that's good. So that's about theistic, theistic religious sort of view. There is beginning, God created. Now next, the non-theistic religion, Buddhism, Jainism, and one more, the one part of Sangha tradition, this all Indian. I still, you see, not yet sort of a detailed explanation about ancient Egyptian belief. Seems as they believe the rebirth or a concept of hell and these things. So still, few occasions I met some scholar. I asked, but no sufficient time. So in any way, in India, these two, Buddhist, mainly is these two traditions, Buddhist tradition and Jainism, Jain tradition. Now no wind. So these now believe law of causality. There is no creator, some absolute, some independent creator, but everything due to its own causes and conditions. So causes, condition, that gyudin revus labin dizane, gyulu thoma shatya kawa share.
So when we understand the origination of everything in terms of causes and conditions, then it's very difficult to posit any absolute beginning, because the causation process would entail another cause.
If we accept beginning, then that first one, causeless, so difficult. So therefore, today sort of present due to its own causes. Then the previous cause also must be cause, must have causes. So like that way. Now, even Big Bang, you see, there must be causes and the conditions of Big Bang. So there must be tremendous sort of pressure, energy. So there must be causes to create that energy. And explosion happen. So that energy also, you see, must be causes. So like that. So as far as our body is concerned, causes is, of course, obviously, our parent, go like that. Then Darwinian theory, same. And at the beginning, or at the time of Big Bang, the substance, very subtle substance of today's body, already there. Different form, but same substance. Then due to other condition, and also combine with the other sort of particle, then eventually things change, go like that. So today's human body, then come like that. So now the question whether there is beginning, whether the self have beginning or not. Now, according to Jainism, I don't know. The Jain accept law of causality, but at the same time, permanent, independent self also accepted. So I don't know detail, you see, their explanation. Although in the Buddhist literature, which translated from India, they mentioned all these different ancient Indian tradition, but this particular point, I didn't notice. Thomas wanda, the Jirbube, Dahading, Walker Zumo, the Shepherd, country machine. Jidokobo boy, Meduce. So can I shake the Shimoste?
So although
Kidway, Chingway.
although the Jain, like Buddhism, does not posit a creator, but at the same time, unlike Buddhism, Jain accepts the concept of eternal soul or permanent self. So whether or not they posit a beginning to this permanent self, it's a standpoint that I haven't seen explained in the text.
Now, as far as Buddhism is concerned, since self is designated on the combination of body and mind, therefore, in order to find out whether there is beginning of self or not, we must because we must think the beginning of the body and mind. Then body, of course, human body, when because of time of conception, right?
Yeah,
Conception. Then you see this life's human body started. If that further goes, then as I mentioned earlier, because of particles, ions, you see, already there. So continuation of particle already there. Now important is mind. Now when we talk about mind, there are two categories of mind. One category, sensorial level. These, so long the body there, these mind function. That basis no longer there, then these mind automatically stop. So at the time of our death, or even you see the beginning, or kasoda, ngel chan, teneya shine chi kichi, tira toy sane, any ombudi true, and tether drain, Dagana single page chi, gain that now to someone lekumado. Those and me shabas what it gave.
So even in terms of our child development from the stage of womb, the sensory faculties, develop, and then gradually the sensory level of experience and perceptions become possible. So there is a kind of a developmental process.
And every tabananda so that's one category of mind, sensory level. Another not depend on physical, but
So another category of our mental experience is at the level of mind itself, and they are not directly contingent upon any sensory organ.
Iwan
Yes, mental level.
or
Mental
mental. So now the main sort of basis of designation self is mental continuum.
So in Buddhism, the self is understood to be designated upon the continuity of the consciousness, continuity of the mind.
So now the question is whether there is a beginning of, whether mind have a beginning or not. Now, what is mind? What is causes of mind? So now these points now involve. Now I'm going to speak Tibetan. A very good translator remain here. If I try to my broken English, then there's additional burden. And also wasting his sort of ability, isn't it? So therefore, I think better I use my Tibetan. And also the precise meaning. My English vocabulary very limited. So sometimes I may use wrong vocabulary. So then you get more confusion. So better to rely on good translator. 다 쉐바슬로나 거라 세리 직샤디가 쉐베 몰로나 다 쉐베 모 딘디디 아니 죽한데는 기브슬로나 옴부 쉐바드 이메이나 미키 아니 다게 즉 테마 다게 한 나가는 시기 치나와 디디기 다네 기아 그래도와 다 이루 쉐베이나 이루 옴부 쉐베 장댕에기 이루 배나 숭진 똑바르고 숭진 믹시기 장배 숭진 똑바르고 릭시도 봐 릭시 옴부 쉐베 장 뭐임 봐 그래 이루 코랑 직다 가소리 단다로 즉 싸움다네 드리기 전에 용댕에기 이루 똑바르 직도 봐.
So when we talk about mind, we're talking about essentially the nature of consciousness. So what do we mean by consciousness? In the Buddhist tradition, consciousness is characterized as a phenomenon that is luminous and has the quality of knowing and being aware of. So within this phenomena, as I explained before, there are two primary categories. One at the sensory level of experience, other at the level of mind itself, mental level. And so when we think about how, say, for example, an instance of sensory perception arises, such as visual cognition of something, we know that multiplicity of conditions need to be come together. For example, there is the objective condition, which is the external object that you encounter with the sensory of faculty. Then there is also an immediately preceding moment of awareness, without which you cannot be aware of what you are seeing. And then there is also and the sensory faculty itself, the physical sensory organ. So it's the coming together of these three conditions, including a space around the object, which enables you to have this moment of perception, a sensory perception. And then, however, if you contrast that to the mental cognition, then some types of mental cognition can be brought about by sensory experience. So, for example, when you see a physical object and then you close your eyes and then you imagine it, then you can have a mental level image of that object. However, there are other types of mental cognition where the experience itself is not directly related to a sensory experience, where a thought alone, simply cultivating a thought, can give rise to a mental experience. So you can see there are different types of cognitive experiences that we have.
다 셰바디 참을어야 거로 세링 오르게야디 테마타키 사디시가.
So, however, all of these mental experiences share one common feature, which is their nature as being luminous and having this quality of knowing and being aware of.
다 다제 세리기 등이 정이다 셰바디 답변은 리슬람을 갔다 와. 자. 배는 가는저 세듀기 내고기. 배는 안다 간저다 세듀기 셰바 내고기 셰바죠 봐. 아다 다때 다 뒤지 잡아도 제셔베 세듀기 셰바디 다른 속에 다니 세마타게 더 셰바디기 균에 말레고도 와. 다디 공래야 니기 내고를 니디 셰바를 셰비요래. 심중 잘 샤버래. 전에다 디네글리 셰바지 예데버리 두두 공부 셰바지 제데 바라 셰바서 셰 니기 셰바디 야래 만도 주다다 다디 쇼트니로 용되기도 와 배는 배는 카사케니 배는 카사르리 당고 치주 다 선이 추주 들으실려가 런기인 삼배 편바식 전부시 담아 있나 편바스도 전에 셰베 걸어 들어보다 눈물을 붙이거다 그래서 셰베 눈버디 니기 셰베 강래야 거다 대체 눈베 슈르다 눈버군주도 요마를 되는 눈베 슈르 되고 니기 셰베 강 대여에 있잖아요 그 니기 셰베 균디기 간에 아니 카세 편바 눈버 슈르 전부 당시에 디겐션이 추주 뒤도 딱딱하니 있어요도. 자, 딘데기 둔베 땡르데 담시 레베 레자톤에 되셔자 강성도 유지리. 그 강성도 연구리데 이네 빠데 차선식 뒷장장 톤에 샤트 앞에서 가고래. 그래서 디데 이르잖아요. 그 니기 셰베 윤기 톤에 마 용되게 시도가. 다 두두두두 도시야 데이르잖아요. 내도 닝스 잘못하고 내가 그 셰바디 세리기 등이도 여대버디 세리기 균제 다시 세리 툼 릭투버지기 다 제서거베 드리지기 뉴베테네 고 용거야 샤용인데 딘데게 타네 제니 아니 셰바 멤버레 계신 말이스 세리기 등이도 매댕에 지글레 세리기 등이 추게토 말이스 배나 숙쟁이 쳐야지 랑다 릭tumbe 숙쟁이 깨고 숙쟁이 년龄이 줄이야 숙쟁 코라 릭tumbe 지기 줄이 깨고 그러마도 아니 셰베 년齡이 깨토야 이거 말이스 다 어디는 드리브 인도산에 셰베디에 코라 릭tumbe 지기 줄이 깨고 그래 그 년齡이 주셔야인데 노스는 셔야인데 셰발라 균 토마샤트야 매버래 딘데 인도산에 셰베 귤을 때는 딱왜 강사로 토마 매셔다.
So let us take the example of the moment of consciousness that we are experiencing right now, where what the Buddhist language calls experiencing the waking state of consciousness. We're all awake, and if we try to trace the causal continuum of the current, right, the experience of consciousness right at this moment, we can trace it up to the point when we woke up this early morning. And so now, where does that first moment of consciousness when we woke up come from? The continuity of that, the first instant of consciousness when we wake up can be traced to an earlier stage, which is when we were sleeping. So this shows that although in our sleep, many of the kind of more manifest sensory experiences remain dormant. Our sensory faculties remain dormant, but there is a continuity of consciousness and awareness, which is during the sleep state, and such that, for example, if sometimes if we need to get up very early at a particular time, and before going to bed, we project a very strong intention, make a strong intention, and project a thought that I must get up at 4 o'clock or whatever time it is. And then you go to bed, and when you are in sleep, that conscious thought is not there, yet still the impact of that conscious intention is retained, and that is retained while you are in sleeping state. And so it is so that because the impact is retained in the sleep, next morning, without actual conscious thought in the sleep itself, you can get up. So this shows that the continuity of the consciousness is maintained. Now, if we trace further, then we can trace the continuity of consciousness all the way up to the moment of, conception. So then, at that, so long as there is even a single instance of consciousness, then we can ask, where is the causal continuum of that? So because the consciousness and mind is primarily characterized as a phenomenon that has this quality of luminosity, knowing, and being aware of, and this is at its subtlest level, not a physical phenomenon. Therefore, we can trace its continuum. And so just as with relation to matter, material phenomena has its own causal continuum, only material phenomena. Mind cannot just make matter. So in the same manner, in the mental phenomena as well, any mental phenomena which is primarily characterized as having this quality of luminosity and knowing, it must come from its own continuum, which shares the same nature of luminosity and knowing. So in this way, in the Buddhist tradition, the continuity of the consciousness is traced to earlier stages of existence, and in this way, beginningless. And if the consciousness and the mind, in terms of its continuum, is beginningless, then the identity of person that is designated or constructed upon this consciousness will also be understood to be beginningless.
So that's the Buddhist view. Now, the third point, whether there is end of the theistic viewpoint, yes, after final judgment, some go to heaven and some go to hell. Hopefully, majority must go to, or should go to heaven. Down there. So that's, we are trying, to look up, not look down there. So therefore, then I still don't know when we reach heaven in the presence of God and companion with angels, that may be then permanent, maybe. Or one day is God kasurda dissolve. I don't know. Dissolve Sigveda.
Withdraw all the creations.
I don't know. Seems to be no clear sort of explanation. So in any way, not much concern. You see, permanently happy in the presence of God. So time is not important then. Now from the non-theistic, I think Jainism, I don't know. I really don't know. Now, as far as Buddhism is concerned, there are two theories, two groups of
Views,
view.
views,
Two,
two views.
one, now here in Buddhism, as far as theory is concerned, the theory of views is concerned, there are four different schools of thought. Vivashik, Sotamdik, Chittamantra, and the Madhyamika. So, according some school of thought, when you reach the final sort of salvation, then the consciousness cease. So the being or self then cease. I don't like that. Then nothing left. I think much better, some alive. I think much better. So therefore, the rest of Buddhist school of thought argue that's wrong. Why? What is the causes? Complete cessation of self or mind. Yes, the impure mind, just a cessation, that's reasonable and logical. But mind itself cease, no logic. The Shiva never la go shukada kaine, the tendo gabasaya de rangi gula nushi tomde yana. And go guard Rada. When a Shiva motive charges daddy, because I do the Moributon, you go into Sane, Moribol Nushi Tomde Yave, Junzel Tane, Moribol Tending Shiva guard Rayoris. Yunshed Rayoris.
So this majority of the Buddhist schools reject the notion that at the point of liberation or salvation, that the person or the being permanently ceases to exist. And their argument is that although it is logical that for certain phenomena, if there is a powerful antidote against its causes, then that phenomena can be brought to an end. So the deluded states of mind, which are rooted in a distorted understanding of reality, those deluded states of mind can be brought to an end, but not the continuity of the consciousness itself.
So therefore, one part of Buddhist tradition sort of accept and of the self. But major Buddhist tradition say no. The self eventually say because of the reach salvation. The self still remain there. 남유자 직저당의 지신 난감 내고 봐도 self로다. 난감 self 매봐다.
So therefore the expression is used that as long as space remains.
So that means space always remain. So self always remain like that. So the answer for 3 points from different sort of traditions. Now, because I believe among humanity, even I think here, the group of people here, naturally, many different mental disposition. For example, even within the Buddha's own follower, There are different metta disposition. Therefore, Buddha taught different concept or different philosophy because of the necessity according different metta disposition. So therefore, you see, we need a variety of religion or variety of method. So the different tradition, different method, all brings goodness to humanity. So I thought maybe some help to explain these different traditions. So then, up to you. Sometimes I describe, of course, not because out of disrespect, but I just mention like supermarket of religion. There are many variety. So, according one's own sort of mental disposition, we have the freedom to choose this or that, that. That's that. Now, important is we must respect all tradition. Usually, now for example, I am Buddhist. I study Buddhism. I practice Buddhism, and through practice, I got some sort of little experience. Of course, better than zero. Very low, but still better than zero. Little experience. It's really helpful to myself. So therefore, for my own case, Buddhism is best for my case. That does not mean Buddhism is best religion to everybody. Certainly not. So to some people, Christianity is the best, most effective, as I mentioned earlier. The theory of God and the one-pointed faith towards that God is very helpful. Like that. So therefore, we, because of that, besides one's own religion, we must appreciate all other major traditions. It's very important. So, my commitment, lifelong commitment, is promotion of religious harmony on the basis of mutual admiration, mutual respect. Now Buddhism, Buddha came in India, generally speaking, 2000, about 600 years ago. The Buddha's first sermon at Sarnath is Four Noble Truths. Now, Four Noble Truths. Sungkoyadi, Four Noble Truths, Sungkoyadi. I think the reason why is Four Noble Truths taught. Our main concern is suffering, which we do not want, and we want to overcome that. Then we want joyfulness or happiness, not only temporary happiness or joyfulness, but permanent joyfulness. So both pains and suffering and joyfulness and happiness both entirely depend on its own causes and the conditions. Therefore, Four Noble Truths comes. True suffering, that is thing which we do not want. And overcome that through just a prayer, through wishful
thinking.
Wishful thinking. it won't go. Because it comes its own causes and conditions. So in order to overcome suffering, we must tackle the causes and the conditions of that suffering. Therefore, the second noble truth he mentioned, the causes of suffering, two causes of suffering. Since we want joyfulness, so that also depends on its own causes. So the third noble truth is the permanent. Cessation means the previous two truth completely eliminated, cease, or cessation of the negative thing. That is third noble truth. That means when the suffering with its own causes completely eliminated, that's a permanent joyfulness, permanent happiness. That our goal. So now that depends on fourth noble truth, true path. 다인다. 동해 담바 슬라비누산에 멋이다. 너지 직된다. 주지 직된션이 디디 태용이야래. 이제 조조 동해 샤인누산에 소라강 상당도가 시베 리스로다. 시베 영야강도 되도가.
So, with relation to the Four Noble Truths, the first truth is, as explained before, the truth of suffering. So in this teaching, although when talking about suffering, Buddha is relating to the entire world of both sentient beings and the environment in which sentient beings live, but essentially the meaning of suffering really is pertaining to one's own experience. So when we talk about experience and feeling, then we are talking about a mental level phenomena.
다전에 군중 담바스 럽데 아니 레지 군중도 용무배 군중 세레 아니 자 레지 군중이야 룡아가 리치 숙젠데 여버데 이네 조조데 셰베가나 상당이야래.
So in the second noble truth is the truth of the origin of suffering, and here principally two origins or causes of suffering are identified. These are karma and the afflictions, the mental afflictions that give rise to the karmic action. So when we talk about karma, although karma includes both actions of body, speech, and mind, but fundamentally the essential karma is really again a mental act. And yeah, and the second primary cause of suffering is the afflictions.
Also mind, a part of mind. Then go tamba sade 도균 이부터 강도 세버렸을라나 심지 다 가서 올게 다 심지 추인 심지 인수 다 답에서 없이 간다 고베 담바스야데 마타와 동해 요야게 다 동해다 동해기 규다 제등에게 셰버티 땡게 동해다 동해기 규디 매바 차소나 또 조조 동해기 규디 매바 차네 다소나 진리기다 셰베 연대지 간에 고베 담바스야래.
The third noble truth is the truth of cessation, and when we talk about cessation, we are talking about the cleansing of the mind, a state where all the pollutants of the mind, the afflictions and the deluded states are cleansed into the very essential nature of mind itself. So, therefore, when we talk about the third truth, the truth of cessation, essentially we are also talking about a quality of the mind, a quality which is attained when all the pollutants and the deluded states have been cleansed and purified.
다와나 동네 녀르시we 니시사 다 도구 녀르시와 진지지 아니 컨저스 연구했었나 뒤주도 가르쳤나 아니 람지 템바스야디 람지 템바스르도 다그 동네에 다 싸워 아니 묘모 그 싸워 독순 그 싸워 띠무 다 띠무 저다 맨자요래 이네 다 쏘디 다 띠무 머리가 사야 시게요래 자 디데 인도산에 띠무 머리고 도발라 아니 머리보다 진단 개에 아니 다 로치다 깨고요래 그래서 진단 개와 시야 인도산에 띠무 머리고 사야고 실험 묘모체 따와르 주베 묘모 지 임베 인도산에 대 간다 대 실험 주고요래 실험 강시에 실험 주고랬을라나 머리베 치질로도 또 돼야 대 대다도 주베요 말이 senpa to tenge ki lochko yare da tinde de dono marigbe da do shemba indu zane ti nyambu ti da meber to ge shirap ti da ti nyambu chi yare de indu zane da me to ge shirap da tela ya nyo ten tenge chi imba indu ene da me musum do to ge ene yishi sa da tela lamje de baslo imbre.
So then the question is, how can that true cessation be brought about? How can one achieve that true cessation? And here the Buddha taught the fourth noble truth, which is the path, the true path. So, so when we talk about through the application of the path, bringing about a total cessation, the causes of sufferings are identified as the mental afflictions, and the root of afflictions are the three principal afflictions of delusion, aversion, and attachment. And these three poisons of the mind, the roots of afflictions, are ultimately rooted in an ignorance, a fundamental ignorance. And although there are many different levels of ignorance and understanding of what constitutes a fundamental ignorance, but essentially when we talk about fundamental ignorance which underlies all our deluded states of mind, we are talking about an ignorance pertaining to the ultimate nature of reality, the way in which at a very fundamental level we understand the nature of reality. Which this fundamental ignorance can be brought to an end is by cultivating a wisdom that sees through the delusion of that ignorance and directly opposes it and acts as an antidote and remedy against this ignorance. And therefore, we need to understand what is the object and content of this fundamental ignorance. And the content of that fundamental ignorance is the grasping at self. And although in reality there is no self, but at a fundamental level, we tend to grasp at existence of self. Therefore, only by eliminating that distortion, only by gaining insight into the nature of no self, then one will be able to directly counter that ignorance and bring to an end. Therefore, the true path is the wisdom of no self, wisdom realizing no self, and particularly that wisdom needs to be cultivated at the level of experience, not just intellectual level, but at the level of experience. So therefore, a direct realization, experiential understanding of no self is what is meant by the true path. That is the fourth noble truth.
So today in the Dambashi Siddhadi, some Matagwe Negutala, Neguta, Junje Somro, Jenny, Dambang, Gunumusha, Dambani, some two Dene, then Joyage, and all that Kasachuti, Namjasha Dambani.
So, in summary, we can actually understand the Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths as pertaining to two sets of cause and effects. One set pertaining to an untamed, undisciplined, and deluded state of mind. So in that cause and effect set, we have the suffering as the result and origin of suffering as the cause. So that's a cause and effect nexus that relates to our untamed states of mind. And then the second set of cause and effect, the cessation and the true path leading to cessation, relates to another causal nexus that relates to that relates to a cleansed and purified state of mind, an enlightened state of mind.
这样的三边个的重要的，number top 也是以望度就呢，跨面是，当 number top 啊，那么是这样的，俺拉面给他是吧？他们那个的家呢，他下当去要来的，但俺的电视讲的家里人拍家确实的，number top 没日呗，没日不的。 아니 내루지베 예시기 왕도 줄어이나 과메스 넘버 떠고 예시기 왕도 줄는 과메 예시 넘버 떠고이 왕도 줄는 냥데메스 순다데 다 내루다 런신기 타바 다메바 예임버레데 이네 이가도다 내로라 런신이 동사에 예다만네 예임버체 대신도 셰바 세섬 직섬게 더니데 주버잔도 매버지 예임버레데 이나야 루부르기 머리고 소르기베 넘버떡베 샤왕도 주버 드시도 아니 냥데메스.
So with respect to this, there is a passage in a stanza in Sakyapandita's writing, which although he explains in the context of Vajrayana, but can be applied to the Four Noble Truths teaching, where Sakyapandita says that if our mistaken, confused concepts, which are rooted in ignorance, are brought under the kind of the control of wisdom, then there will be no samsara, there will be no cyclic existence. However, if the primordial wisdom falls under the influence of ignorance, then there will be no liberation. So the point Sakya Pandita is making is that if through the application of the path we can counter our deluded states of mind and the mistaken concepts ignorance give rise to, if we can counter them through the application of wisdom, then there will be an end to cyclic existence, unenlightened existence. However, if the primordial quality of wisdom, which is inherent in us, which is the luminous nature of the mind that we have been speaking about, and also the mind itself is devoid of intrinsic existence. So in that sense, mind itself, the essential nature of mind is pure. However, if we allow this essential nature of mind to be under the domination of adventitious conditions such as afflictions of the mind and pollutants of the mind, then there will be no possibility of liberation. And here the Buddha taught the fourth noble truth, which is the path, the true path. So, so when we talk about through the application of the path, bringing about a total cessation of all the suffering and its causes, here the causes of sufferings are identified as the mental afflictions, and these three poisons of the mind, the roots of afflictions, are ultimately rooted in an ignorance, a fundamental ignorance. And although there are many different levels of ignorance and understanding of what constitutes a fundamental ignorance, but essentially when we talk about fundamental ignorance which is pertaining to the ultimate nature of reality, the way in which at a very fundamental level we understand the nature of reality in a distorted manner. So the way in which this fundamental ignorance can be brought to an end is by cultivating a wisdom that sees through the delusion of that ignorance and directly opposes it and acts as an antidote and remedy against this ignorance. And therefore, we need to understand what is the object and content of this fundamental ignorance. And the content of that fundamental ignorance is the grasping at self. And although in reality we tend to grasp at existence of self, therefore only by eliminating that distortion, only by gaining insight into the nature of no self, then one will be able to directly counter that ignorance and bring to an end. Therefore, the true path is the wisdom of no self, wisdom realizing no self, and particularly that wisdom needs to be cultivated at the level of experience, not just intellectual level, but at the level of experience. So therefore, a direct realization, experiential understanding of no self is what is meant by the true path. That is the fourth noble truth.
So today in the Dambashi Sudadi, some Matawe Negutala, Neguta, Junje Somro, Cheni, Dambang, Kunumucho, Dambani, some two Dene, Joyage, and all that Kasachuti, Namjasho Dambani.
So, in summary, we can actually understand the Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths as pertaining to two sets of cause and effects. One set pertaining to an untamed, undisciplined, and deluded state of mind. So, in that cause and effect set, we have the suffering as a result, and origin of suffering as the cause. So, that's a cause and effect nexus that relates to our untamed states of mind. And then the second set of cause and effect, the cessation and the true path leading to cessation, relates to another causal nexus that relates to that relates to a cleansed and purified state of mind, an enlightened state of mind.
The Sabeng Disungare. Number of Toba, Yishiji, want to do no Kwames. Number Toba. Tamashi Dianda, Nalamegita, Shiva Chamu Nego the Jani, the Shadanchi already, the under the Tinshikan Jari in the Pachachosare. Number Toba, Muribe, Muribate. Any Nelu Ribe Yishigi want to do in a comments. Number of dog Yishigi want to do no comment. Yishi number of dog want to do no Nyangdemes. So that day, that Nelu the Ranshinji Tawa, Dameva Yimberede, Yine Yagadoda. Nelula, Ranshin, you don't say, yet a man, Yimbeche. Taishindo, Sheva says some Rixam Gitani de Chibajando, Mabachi, Yimberede, Yinaya, Luburki, Maribo sword you were number talk by Shawan to give a Tisidu, and Yandemes.
So, with respect to this, there is a passage in a stanza in Sakyapandita's writing, which although he explains in the context of Vajrayana, but can be applied to the Four Noble Truths teaching, where Sakyapandita says that if our mistaken, confused concepts, which are rooted in ignorance, are brought under the kind of the control of wisdom, then there will be no samsara, there will be no cyclic existence. However, if the primordial wisdom falls under the influence of ignorance, then there will be no liberation. So the point Sakyapandita is making is that if through the application of the path, we can counter our deluded states of mind and the mistaken concepts that ignorance give rise to. If we can counter them through the application of wisdom, then there will be an end to cyclic existence, unenlightened existence. However, if the primordial quality of wisdom, which is inherent in us, which is the luminous nature of the mind that we have been speaking about, and also the mind itself is devoid of intrinsic existence. So in that sense, mind itself, the essential nature of mind is pure. However, if we allow this essential nature of mind to be under the domination of adventitious conditions such as afflictions of the mind and pollutants of the mind, then there will be no possibility of liberation.
나 동에 담바로서 시부디 간리야 체주 시시에선 체주 주도 송야래 전에다 동에 담배 체주 시 메다 동에 동 다음에 세다디 낭배 가서다 따로 소도 송여서래.
So when Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, each of these Four Noble Truths are taught in relation to 4 characteristics. So altogether there are 16 characteristics of the Four Noble Truths. And the 4 characteristics of the suffering or dissatisfaction and or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and then third is emptiness, and fourth is no self. And these. So sometimes the emptiness and no self are identified together as one, and then we speak of 3 characteristics of existence, these being impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and no self.
Now, impermanence. There are 2 levels. One obvious sort of impermanence. That is more grosser level of impermanence. Another impermanence is a subtle way, subtle level. Now the obvious sort of, or say the grosser level of impermanence, now our body. I think a few years ago when I come here, my body at that time and now today, there is change. Of course, one obvious sort of big change is when I previously come here, my body as a human body complete. Now this time, my body, my organ missing. That is gallbladder. Last year, gallbladder created some problem, so finally remove. So therefore, that also obvious change. That I think some of you here more sort of white hair. I think a few years ago, I think less. So these are obvious sort of change. And look, trees, these, you see, the different season, it's a different color, different shape. These are grosser level of change or impermanence. Now, they say, you see, obvious or grosser level of change. We can notice within 1 year, that change must take place within 12 months. And noticeable change within 1 month must take place in 30 days. And that change within 1 day must based on 24 hours change 24 hours. Change within 1 hour must sort of based on change within minute. Within 1 minute change must take place, must based on momentarily changing. Within second, things are changing. So now that's a subtle level of impermanence. Now the grosser level of impermanence, obviously, some additional cause. Due to that, sometimes it happens. But then subtle level of change, not due to third force, but its own causes, causing that change. 깨지기다. 깨지기 직бот대 깨지기 죽하는 거 제시오지.
So the fact that everything is undergoing change at a momentary level, and that is not caused by some other third factor, but rather the very cause and condition that brought it into being also brought with that mechanism for change.
저자 같은데 인도산에 깨지기 직 시드산에 깨지 당보 깨지 입에 두수 시해야 돼. 규진지 싸도 잡아 많이 봐. 친중기 규진지 잡아 많이 봐. 랑 깨지기 규 잡아 인도산에 깨지 당보 렁두수 직배 더니도 조임 버려.
So the fact that things that undergo this momentarily, moment by moment basis change suggests that anything, doesn't last more than a minute. So from the first instance of a continuing phenomena, in the second instance, the first instance is no longer there. So and this process of moment by moment change is really not brought about by a secondary factor that comes after the thing has come into being. Therefore, from the perspective of subtle impermanence, it is understood that anything that comes into being, anything that is caused with this nature of change, this nature of susceptible to momentary changing.
Today in the
And therefore, the understanding is that any effects that we can identify are conditioned by the cause that brings it into being. So therefore, the effects are under the power of their causes.
가끔들 독대 하나 풍부가 집이나 풍부가디 주의 상황절에 주의 가라슬람나 주의 머리버래 자 근데 이 머리베 상황지 임베 차네 그 동요래 잡래.
So in the context of the teachings on the Four Noble Truths, when we identify the five psychophysical elements, aggregates that constitute the individual, or all these physical and the mental elements are causally conditioned phenomena, then we have to identify what their primary causes are. And in the context of the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, the primary cause of these the five aggregates are identified as this fundamental ignorance. And given that fundamental ignorance is a distorted state of mind, so from that aspect, our very conditioned existence is recognized to be a form of suffering, a form of dissatisfactory.
다오나 동해 가서 그랬다. 다 동해 전기 풍부스는면도 근데 끼어왔디 어느 매바 소트야 여르베슬럼나 여레스 가레슬럼나 대이자와 머리베 다도 셴데 여레 정 어마라 다도 못 들어와스.
So then the question is, this form of conditioned existence, which is brought about and which is rooted in the fundamental ignorance, is this form of conditioned dukkha existence, then the answer is that it is possible, given that they are rooted in this fundamental ignorance, and since the ignorance is grasps at self, which does not exist, therefore, by cultivating insight into the absence of that self, one can bring about an end to this ignorance, thereby bringing an end to the conditioned existence.
다오나 다메바 임베 좀제 가르슬라나 아니 저부 줄로 떠버디 패지 강섬지 둔주의 패지 시그레 둔주지기 패지 책 네베 디기디 그 규칙을 뜨기에버디 패지 강섬 시그레 동네 체지 동네지 규칙이 용구여버디 시엔이 두틀레 여야지 시그도와 그 패지 둔제긴 저 첨부지 시그도와 가자 저부디 줄로 떠버디 시그도와 다 저부 줄로 떠버 난시 주로 줘버디 샹라 떠버매베 주로 줘버디 시그면도와 랑제 라 떠네 주 샤주 마도 저불로 마도베 주 샤투야면도와 자 디레이 누산에 준제 세대 편수 떠버려도와
So then the question can be raised about what are the grounds on which the Buddhist understands and there is no self. How is the wisdom of the no self explained? And here the understanding of the relationship between cause and effect becomes crucial. To some extent, even the animals are capable of correlating causes and effects. So for example, through association, sometimes they know that if they do something, it leads to some consequences, and thereby they are able to avoid getting into that situation. So to some extent, even the animals are capable of correlating certain events and making that causal connections. So therefore, the question is that we are capable of recognizing that the effects are dependent upon causes. The question is, are the causes also dependent upon the effect? Now, in terms of origination, in terms of actual coming into reality, there is a sequence, but at the same time, for something to be identified as a cause, that concept of being a cause already presupposes a relationship with an effect. You cannot identify a particular event as a cause independent of its relation to an effect. So when you look at a concept, notion of cause and effect in that manner, we can see that causes and effects are mutually defined and mutually related. So there is a mutual dependence upon both causes and effects.
다 저부 줄로 떠버디 준 저불로 때네 땅과야 돼. 준 저불로 때네 줘 말을 때 이네 준 저불로 때네 땅과 되기 때네 땅과 때네 살 시도.
So in understanding the cause and effect relations, here the Buddhist principle of dependent origination becomes important. So when we look at the relationship from the perspective of from the effect depending upon the cause in terms of its origination, this is the dependent origination in terms of causal dependence. And when we look at the relationship from the perspective of the cause, the notion of cause being dependent upon the notion of an effect, then here, from the perspective of the cause, the relationship can be defined as a dependent designation. The concepts are mutually defined.
자다 준제 땡중 되기 때네 딱왜 땡중 되기 시체고도.
So you can see that it is the principle of dependent origination in terms of causal dependence that serves as the basis for the understanding of the dependent origination in terms of dependent relations.
좀 전에 컨시 깨를 깨봐 대마지스 깨를 라레버 심베이나 디 모니기 깨와 중요 말이스 그것이 깨는 게 대마지 달라 깨와 매사 된다데 달라 깨와 정신 요 매버와스 깨와 정신이 주와 깨와 때바 매베 랑어 등이기 깨와 요 말이스 달라 깨와 정신 요마이 근데 인도산에 깨라 랑래 강데 동버셰스 지송보다
So therefore, the Buddha taught in the sutra that in his scriptures that anything that is dependent upon a condition is essentially unborn. And then in the second line, he explains what he means by being unborn. He says that that phenomena that is dependent upon a condition is devoid of any intrinsic arising, intrinsic origination. And therefore, that which is dependent upon the causes is explained to be empty.
다 로미 켄지 시워스 제베 세신기 제바 로미 까말로 실레 제셔베 디나로리아 세브 시브시베 독주견의 송셔베지 디르송도와 균제기 땡중 랑예바 타베 땡네 몬도 주야티셰 땡네 딱베 땡중기 전라 녜바 타베 관에 녜리 주야티셰 너는 주죠 최근도 아니 터도 녜리 니여바 인도 대니 주지디 땡네 중에 땡중다 땡네 딱베 땡중 권이 토하는 주보로 했어.
So in Kamala Shila's exposition of his master's Shantarakshita's text, Tattva Samgraha, compendium of principles, in this text, Kamala Shila explains the important role the understanding of dependent origination at these two levels play for a Buddhist practitioner whose aspirations are in the immediate term attainment of a higher fortunate rebirth, and in the long term attainment of liberation, what is referred to as definite goodness. And Kamala Shila explains that it is on the basis of deepening one's understanding of the dependent origination of causes and conditions that one can cultivate the conditions that are necessary for attaining a higher rebirth, fortunate rebirth. And it is by deepening one's understanding and applying the knowledge of the dependent origination of dependent designation, then one will be able to seek the conditions for attainment of liberation. So he explains how the attainment of fulfillment of the goal of the Buddhist practitioner can be effected through the principles, practice of these two principles.
Yeah. 다 녜리 주발라 뭐라 뭐도 터바지 고야래 가려서는 녜리 주야데 쪼쪼 담이 덕에 싫어 겁네 녜리 주고 예바 인도산에 싫어도 남지기 싫어기 다 댐버지기 류제지 거래 근데 인도산에 뭔도 류된 터바 뭔도 줘야 터네 아니 녜리 주고야지 이 말이야.
So between these two objects of aspiration, two goals of a Buddhist practitioner, one is the attainment of a higher rebirth, and the other one is the attainment of definite goodness, which is enlightenment. There is a sequence. In order to attain definite goodness or liberation, one must attain a fortunate higher rebirth, because it is only when one has attained a fortunate and higher rebirth that one is able to cultivate the wisdom that is necessary for attainment of liberation. And that cultivation of wisdom presupposes that you have a certain faculty of intelligence.
나 어느 것도 주야게 탑 람도 가려서나 미기주부 수림지 넬리 주야게 탑 가려서나 러버스미 말이.
So the core of the method or the path or method for attainment of fortunate higher rebirth is the practice of morality constituted by observing a moral discipline of avoidance of 10 negative actions, 10 unwholesome actions. And the core method of attaining liberation is constituted by cultivating the wisdom, insight into no self, the teaching of no self. The three higher trainings: training in morality, concentration, and wisdom.
대탐제 전주 system 탐제 힘을 주는 거예요.
So when all of these Buddhist practices are sustained by and complemented by the cultivation of bodhicitta, the altruistic awakening mind, then all of these practices can become factors contributing towards the attainment of Buddhahood.
That is about explanation for Noble Truth and sort of basic, the structure of Buddhism. So now completed. Now 5 minutes still there. So usually when I give this kind of explanation, then those people who consider themselves as a Buddhist or serious practitioner, usually I give the pledge of bodhicitta.
I conduct the ceremony for upholding the bodhicitta, the awakening mind.
So now only those people who seriously taking interest about practice of Buddhism, not all people. The rest of the people simply can be witness. So when you see those people who already made some kind of the pledge, and whether they really keep that pledge sincerely or not, those witness people should watch, including Dalai Lama himself. Please watch me, investigate. Now those the people who want to take the bodhicitta
Those who wish to participate in the ceremony and generate the awakening mind,
firstly visualize in front of us Buddha Shakyamuni as a sort of living, visualize that, and then surrounded by Nagarjuna, Arya Asanga, all those great Buddhist masters of Nalanda, and then also like Manjushri, Maitreya, Avalokiteshvara, and Goddess Tara, like that. These Bodhisattvas in the deity form surrounded. And then, now in this case, the Tibetan tradition, my lineage is Tibetan, Tibetan. So originally our lineage come from Nalanda. That's very clear. The Shantarakshita, 8th century, he invited by Tibetan emperor. He came. Generally, according to Indian historian, when he went to Tibet, his age already 70, mid-70, 75, 76, like that. And then about more than 20 years, he remained in Tibet. Then he passed away in Tibet, in Samya Monastery. So his some relics also remain there. So that person is the real introducer. I mean, he really carry the introduction, right? Introduce Buddhism in Tibet, and also give monk ordination by him. So that scholar, that master is one of the top master of Nalanda institution, the holder of Madhyamika philosophy, holder of Nagarjuna's philosophy, and meantime, he is great logician. All his sort of text is right in the form of that.
With a very kind of dialectical style.
So therefore, I always feel quite proud that our real teacher, original teacher, is a great philosopher, great logician. So therefore, till now, we Tibetan Buddhist sort of institution carry that sort of tradition. Study rigorously and often through dialectics. So like that. So visualize all the great Indian masters and then Tibetan masters. And in front of them, now we 7 limb.
So in front of them, we will perform the 7-limbed practices.
The
The first of the limb is making prostrations or offering salutations. So you should cultivate the thought that in the presence of all this great assembly of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the great masters, with your body, speech, and mind, with reverence and respect, you offer your salutation, you bow.
Then, 이동에 그게 가서다 최세 아니 로일란데 유삼바직다 사과를 렁니기 류주권의 사백개와 나그권의 사백개와 이주권의 사백개와 남 아니 유삼바지 아니 주배체배 니버를 책이 삼바지 두시와.
So the second limb is the limb of offering. So here you imagine making an offerings of all sorts of beautiful articles to this great assembly, and most importantly, offering anything that is positive in you, all the wholesome actions of body, speech, and mind that you may have accumulated in the past, and also your own personal practice, so that you develop the intention that by offering my own personal practice of engaging in wholesome actions, that I shall please the members of this assembly.
Then shakwa ran jinjingi shangwandu tangni kosumji nyebasawa samalo ta shakwa cho samache.
Then the third limb is declaration of wrongs that you have committed and purification of those actions. So you should cultivate the thought that all the unwholesome actions and that I may have engaged in, driven by extreme self-centeredness and cherishing of my own well-being, I shall declare them and purify them in their presence.
Then Jesu yirawa gyawasada chebe kusumdugu yandala Jesu yira thakbar ji champagne and zabatileli ya Jesu yira rangi kya gyawa khan sa shaba jida thakbar chanju usmala mabake shaba digi la Jesu yira che.
So next limb is the limb of rejoicing. Here you should cultivate a deep sense of rejoicing in all the great enlightened attributes of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front of you, and also cultivate a deep sense of rejoicing in all the good deeds that other people have done, and also cultivate a sense of rejoicing in whatever altruistic intentions that you may have cultivated, any other regarding thoughts and sentiments that you may have experienced. You should develop a sense of rejoicing. Next limb is requesting the Buddhas and Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma. And the next limb is making an appeal to the Buddhas not to enter into a final nirvana. And the final limb is dedication. So the actual text that will be recited.
Any any then chisi nanga never does chigdigi any semgi be to payaki.
So the actual ceremony of generating the awakening mind will be done on the basis of reciting 3 stanzas, 3 verses, and which will be shown on the screen. These 3 verses will be shown on the screen. The first verse is the preliminary practice of establishing the base, where you take refuge in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then the second stanza is the actual generation of the altruistic awakening mind. And the final stanza, which reads, "As long as space endures," is a kind of a concluding part of the ceremony, where you are strengthening and grounding your cultivation of this altruistic awakening so that it remains firm.
Yeah. That's enough. Because I eat it. Should use the time.
We need the text on the screen now. The first stanza. We need the first stanza on the screen.
Yes.
No.
So
we will all read the English text together. With a wish to free all beings.
No.
Okay. So shall we all read together? With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion.
Yeah, Dimas. I think wait.
We need the second stanza now.
No. No, this one, right?
Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world.
Thank you. Now completed. So, I think a unique thing about Buddhism is they utilize our intelligence maximum way, because you see through reasoning or analytical meditation. So therefore, utilize our intelligence maximum way, and then through that way, bring some conviction or some concept. That conviction and concept eventually affect our emotion. Then emotion gradually transformed. So that's the Buddhist way, practice. So for that reason, study is very, very important. Just faith is not sufficient. Faith important, but faith must combine with wisdom. So therefore, for wisdom, study is very, very crucial. So myself, now over 73-year-old, but still I am studying and contemplate and analytical meditation. As soon as I wake up, I start analytical meditation. It's really useful. So for that, the resources of analytical meditation, full of knowledge, for that, study. Just as one text, always repeat that is not sufficient. Read more text. So in Tibetan translation from India, over 300 volumes. So these are very, very helpful, very useful. And then commentary written by Tibetan, I think thousands, like that. So that's all. Thank you.